Hello everyone, and welcome back to your favorite horror storytelling channel. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video.
Midnight never felt dangerous to Evan Cole. It felt empty. That was the difference most people didn't understand. They talked about the night like it was alive, like something prowled in the dark, waiting to jump out. Evan knew better. After years of driving when everyone else slept, he had learned the truth. The city didn't attack you at night. It abandoned you. At 12:42 a.m., Evan's car rolled through an intersection he'd crossed thousands of times. 4 lanes, faded crosswalk lines, a liquor store on the corner that never bothered turning its sign off. The green light reflected off wet asphalt, stretching forward like a path someone had painted just for him. The rain had stopped recently, leaving the air heavy and metallic, the kind of smell that stuck in the back of your throat. Evan lowered his window a few inches, letting the cool night seep in. It helped keep him awake. He had always been awake. That was the problem. The dashboard clock ticked forward. 12:43 a.m. Evan drummed his fingers against the steering wheel. No passengers, no requests. The app on his phone sat quiet, map dimmed, waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Weeknights were like that, especially after midnight, especially in this part of the city. People disappeared from the streets in subtle ways, not all at once. A bus would stop running, a bar would lock its doors, a group laughing too loudly would thin out until only one person remained, standing awkwardly on a corner, checking their phone, wondering how they'd ended up alone. Evan watched it happen every night. He liked being the last moving thing. At 12:45 a.m., the city's sound changed. It was subtle. Evan wouldn't have noticed if he hadn't trained himself to listen. The distant hum, the overlapping noise of engines, HVAC systems, voices bleeding through brick and glass, softened. Not gone, just pulled back, like a tide receding. Evan slowed without realizing it. The road ahead was empty now. No headlights, no brake lights, no pedestrians waiting to cross. Even the liquor store had gone dark, its neon sign finally surrendered to the night. He checked his mirrors. Nothing. A strange pressure settled in his chest. Not fear exactly, but alertness. The feeling you got when you realized you'd been holding your breath without meaning to. The dashboard clock flipped. 12:47 a.m. Evan blinked. The streetlights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. He exhaled a quiet laugh. Get it together, he muttered to himself. He'd been awake too long, that was all. When you lived on caffeine and half sleep, your brain played tricks on you. Patterns where there weren't any, meaning where there was none. The car rolled forward. The intersection ahead looked wrong. Not broken, not blocked, just unfamiliar in a way Evan couldn't immediately name. The street signs were there, but the names didn't register. The buildings leaned slightly inward, their silhouettes pressed closer together than he remembered. He told himself it was the dark. Then his GPS spoke. Rerouting. Evan frowned. He hadn't missed a turn. He hadn't even turned at all. The road was straight, exactly where it had always been. The GPS map twisted. Not spun, not glitched, twisted.
The familiar grid bent like soft plastic under heat, streets stretching and narrowing, intersections sliding out of alignment. A new route highlighted itself in red, pulsing gently, leading forward, into a street Evan was certain did not exist. Evan slowed to a stop. The engine idled, loud in the quiet, too loud. He glanced around, suddenly aware of how alone he was. No open windows, no televisions glowing blue behind curtains, no distant sirens. The city had folded in on itself, leaving him in the crease. His phone buzzed. For a brief moment, relief washed through him, until he saw the screen. No service. That had never happened here. Evan leaned back in his seat, eyes tracing the shapes of the buildings. He'd driven through dead zones before, underpasses and tunnels where signal dropped, but this was open street, downtown adjacent, surrounded by infrastructure. He opened the rideshare app. Nothing loaded. The GPS recalculated again. "Rerouting," the voice said, cheerful and calm, like it hadn't just rewritten reality. Evan shut the app off. Silence rushed in to fill the space it left. That's when he heard footsteps. Not behind him, above him. Evan's eyes lifted slowly. A fire escape clung to the side of a brick apartment building, zigzagging down from the roof like a broken spine. Rusted metal, shadowed landings, empty. The footsteps continued, measured, unhurried, descending, but nothing moved. Evan's pulse thudded in his ears. He turned the engine off, the sudden quiet so complete it made his head ring. He opened the car door and stepped out onto the street. The air felt colder now, sharper. He looked up again. "Hello?" The word didn't echo, it didn't fade, it simply stopped like it had been cut from the air. Evan swallowed. The footsteps stopped too. For a long moment, nothing happened. No movement, no sound, just the low buzz of a streetlight overhead and the distant, almost imagined hum beneath the ground. Then the GPS chimed. He looked down. The screen had turned itself back on. The red route pulsed brighter, inviting. Evan got back into the car. He told himself he'd drive a block, just one. If the street looped or dead-ended, he'd turn around. If it didn't, well, the city was big, bigger than memory, bigger than certainty. The car rolled forward. The street narrowed. Buildings pressed closer, brick and concrete closing in like they were curious. Windows stared down at him, dark and reflective, mirroring his headlights back at him in fractured pieces. Cameras appeared. At first, Evan thought he was imagining them, a trick of light, a shadow shaped like something familiar. But then he saw another, and another, mounted on lampposts, bolted to traffic signals, embedded in brick walls where old fixtures have been removed, all angled toward the road, toward him. One of them moved, just a fraction, tracking his car as he passed beneath it. Evan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "You're tired," he whispered. "That's all this is." The city did not answer. The street curved sharply and opened into a small plaza.
Benches lined the edges. A fountain sat dead at its center. Water long since drained. Coins still glinting faintly at the bottom. A bus stop shelter stood nearby, its glass shattered but frozen in place, shards held together by grime and time. A digital billboard flickered to life. Static washed across the screen. Then text resolved. "You missed your exit." Evan slammed the brakes. The words changed. "You were not supposed to see this part." The billboard went dark. Every camera in the plaza rotated at once. The sound was soft, mechanical, final. Evan sat frozen, heart hammering against his ribs. His breath fogged the windshield, the car suddenly feeling too small, too exposed. Figures stood at the edges of the plaza. They hadn't been there before. At first glance, they looked ordinary. People waiting, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched against the cold, faces relaxed, eyes unfocused. Then Evan realized none of them were breathing. They didn't shift their weight, didn't blink, didn't acknowledge the cameras or the car or each other. They were statues pretending to be people. Evan rolled his window down slowly. "Hey," he called, the word trembling despite his effort to keep it steady. One figure turned its head, only the head. The movement was wrong, too smooth, too precise, like a camera rotating on a mount. Its eyes met Evan's, and for just a moment, he saw the city reflected there. Not the plaza, not the buildings, something deeper, something watching. The figure opened its mouth. No sound came out, but Evan heard the words anyway, not in his ears, but behind his eyes. You stayed past midnight. Every streetlight flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the plaza whole. Evan squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, the figures were gone. The cameras were still. The billboard was dark. Only the road ahead remained, stretching forward into a part of the city that felt thinner, less certain, like it was still loading in. Evan drove. He didn't know why. Maybe because stopping felt like an invitation. The dashboard clock still read 12:47 a.m. It hadn't moved since this began. The city felt closer now. Streets narrowed, buildings leaned. The sky pressed down like a ceiling lowered 1 inch at a time. Evan's sense of direction unraveled, landmarks slipping past without recognition. Then the speakers crackled. Public address, citywide. Static first, then a voice. His voice, exact. "If you can hear this," it said calmly, "you're already too far in." Evan slammed the brakes, heart leaping into his throat. "That's not me," he whispered. The speakers responded instantly. "It will be." The city lights pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Ahead, concrete stairs descended where the street ended, fluorescent lights buzzing softly. A subway entrance without signage, without maps, without permission. Evan parked the car. He stood at the top of the stairs, keys clenched in his fist, staring down into a station that felt larger than the city above it. The clock on his phone still read 12:47 a.m. The city waited, and for the first time in his life, Evan understood something terrible. He had never been driving through the city. He had been moving deeper into it. Evan stood at the top of the subway stairs for a long time before he realized he wasn't breathing properly. The fluorescent lights hummed above the entrance, steady and bright in a way that felt aggressively artificial, like they were trying too hard to convince him everything was normal. The steps descended into darkness that didn't behave like darkness was supposed to. It wasn't empty, it felt occupied. The city behind him was silent. No engines, no wind, no distant voices. Just the low electrical hum beneath everything, like something massive was awake underground. Evan glanced back at his car. It sat exactly where he'd parked it, headlights off, body dark and indistinct. For a moment, it looked unreal, like a prop placed there to remind him of another life. He checked his phone again. 12:47 a.m. No notifications, no signal, no missed calls. Time frozen like a held breath. Evans stepped down onto the first stair. The sound echoed too much. Each step rang out, hollow and exaggerated, bouncing back at him from somewhere far below. The handrail was warm under his palm, not from use, but from something else, something alive enough to generate heat. Halfway down, he paused. The city above felt distant already, like he was remembering it rather than standing beneath it. The air grew cooler the farther he descended, carrying a faint smell of ozone and damp concrete. At the bottom, the station opened wide. Too wide. The ceilings stretched higher than any subway station Evan had ever seen, arching into shadow. Concrete walls stood bare and unmarked. No advertisements, no graffiti, no maps. The floor was spotless, polished smooth by footsteps that had passed through long before he arrived. Tracks ran off into darkness on both sides. A train waited at the platform. Lights on, doors open. Empty.
The LED sign above it flickered weakly. Last stop. You missed it. Evan took a step back. The train doors began to close. Slowly. Patiently. He felt the pressure then, not on his ears, but inside his head. A subtle insistence, like gravity pulling him forward instead of down. The train wasn't chasing him. It wasn't threatening. It was waiting. No, Evan said aloud, surprised by how small his voice sounded. The doors stopped inches from closing. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the lights inside the train dimmed, one by one, until only a single car remained illuminated. The doors slid open again. Evan turned and ran. The station behind him seemed to stretch, steps elongating as he climbed, the exit pulling away like a horizon that refused to get closer. His breath came sharp and loud, the sound swallowed instantly by the concrete around him. When he reached the top, he stumbled out onto the street and nearly collapsed. The stairs were gone. In their place was asphalt, smooth, unbroken, ordinary. Evan spun in a slow circle, heart racing. The street looked normal again, too normal. Streetlights glowed warmly. Buildings stood upright. The oppressive closeness had retreated, leaving space where there hadn't been any before. His car was still there. Relief hit him so hard his knees almost buckled. He unlocked the door with shaking hands and slid into the driver's seat, slamming it shut behind him like it could keep the city out. The engine started on the first try. The dashboard lit up. The clock still read 12:47 a.m. Evan pulled away from the curb and drove without thinking, taking the first turn he saw, then another, and another after that. He didn't care where he was going anymore. He just needed motion, distance, anything that proved the city hadn't closed around him completely. The streets unfolded normally now. Familiar landmarks reappeared. A closed pharmacy, a mural he recognized, a park entrance with a locked gate. His breathing slowed, his grip on the wheel loosened. Maybe it had been exhaustion, a hallucination, a stress response. That explanation felt fragile, but it was better than the alternative. Then the radio turned on. Static poured from the speakers, loud enough to make Evan flinch. He reached for the knob, but before he could touch it, a voice emerged. Not music, not a DJ, just words. "You're doing well," the voice said. It wasn't his voice this time. It was older, calmer, worn smooth by time and repetition. Evan stared straight ahead. "Turn it off," he whispered. "You didn't panic," the voice continued. "Most people do." The static faded, replaced by a low, almost imperceptible hum. Evan's hands trembled, but he forced himself to keep driving. "Who are you?" he asked. The voice didn't answer immediately. "You've driven these streets for years," it finally said. "You know their patterns, their moods. You noticed when something changed." Streetlights ahead flickered in sequence, left to right, like a signal. "That's why you're here, why you can hear me." Evan shook his head. "I didn't agree to anything." A quiet sound came through the speakers, almost a laugh. "No one ever does." The radio clicked off. The city returned to its unnatural calm. Evan drove until he saw the diner. It sat on the corner of an intersection he knew well. A squat building with wide windows and a faded sign that promised open 24 hours. Except the sign was dark. The windows were blacked out. Chairs stacked upside down on tables inside. The parking lot was empty, but the front door stood open, swaying slightly in a breeze Evan couldn't feel. He slowed. The car seemed to hesitate, like it didn't want to stop there. Evan parked anyway. Inside,
The diner smelled like cold coffee and dust. The lights were on, but dim, casting long shadows across cracked tile and empty booths. A chalkboard menu hung behind the counter. It wasn't listing food. Someone had written rules. The city after midnight. Do not run. Do not look into reflections for too long. Do not follow your own voice. If you hear your name spoken behind you, do not turn around. Evan stepped closer, heart pounding. This isn't real, he whispered. The chalk scraped. A new line wrote itself beneath the others. You were already chosen. The lights flickered. Evan backed away, bumping into a table. The sound echoed louder than it should have, reverberating through the empty diner like a warning. Outside, the city waited. He left the diner without looking back. The moment he stepped into his car, the rules burned themselves into his mind, etched deeper than memory. He didn't know how he knew, but he understood them instinctively, the way you understood not to touch a hot stove. The city was teaching him. The roads narrowed again as he drove, subtly at first, then more noticeably. Buildings leaned, shadows deepened, reflections lingered too long in shop windows and mirrors, lagging behind reality by half a second. Evan avoided looking at them. The speakers crackled once more. Good, the older voice said softly. You're learning. Why me? Evan asked. Silence stretched. Because you're awake, the voice finally replied, and because you survived. Images flashed behind Evan's eyes. Hospital hallways, fluorescent lights, the steady beep of machines counting time. A night he hadn't slept. Nights after that. Years of restlessness he'd never understood. You've been listening your whole life, the voice said. You just didn't know what you were hearing. The road ahead dipped downward, leading into an underpass Evan didn't remember existing. The walls were lined with cables and pipes, thick and bundled, like veins feeding something hidden. Evan slowed. Do I get a choice? He asked. The city lights pulsed. Once. Everyone does, the voice said. At first. The underpass opened into an underground garage, vast and empty, rows of parking spaces stretching farther than they should have. Evan's car rolled to a stop without him pressing the brake. The engine shut off. Fluorescent lights hummed above. Evan sat there, hands resting on the wheel, waiting. He didn't know for what, but he knew it was coming.
The underground garage smelled like damp concrete and something older. Evan sat motionless in the driver's seat while the engine ticked softly as it cooled. The fluorescent lights overhead didn't flicker, they hummed steadily, bathing the garage in a flat, colorless glow that made depth hard to judge. Rows of empty parking spaces stretched out in all directions, disappearing into shadow. He checked the dashboard clock. 12:47 a.m. still. He laughed quietly, the sound thin and brittle. Okay, he said. Okay. The laugh didn't echo. That bothered him more than it should have. Evan opened the car door and stepped out. His footsteps sounded wrong, too muted, like the space was absorbing noise instead of reflecting it. He walked slowly, every sense tuned tight, expecting something to move, to speak, to announce itself. Nothing did. At the far end of the garage stood an elevator. It wasn't lit, no indicator lights, no signage, just brushed steel doors set into concrete, clean and unmarked. Evan stopped a few feet away. The older voice spoke again, not from the speakers this time, but from everywhere at once. "You don't remember the first time you were here," it said gently. Evan swallowed. "I've never been here." The elevator dinged, the doors slid open. Inside was darkness, not the absence of light, but something heavier. The air felt thick, resistant, like pushing against deep water. "You don't remember," the voice repeated, "but your body does." Evan stepped inside. The doors closed behind him without a sound. The elevator didn't lurch or descend. It moved smoothly, impossibly, without sensation. Evan felt no shift in gravity, no pull in his stomach. The only indication that anything was happening at all was the faint vibration beneath his feet. Then images began to surface. Not visions, memories. Evan at 16, lying awake in his childhood bedroom while the house slept around him. Streetlights spilling through the blinds. The quiet so complete it felt loud. Evan at 22, sitting in his car outside a hospital at 3 in the morning, too tired to drive, too wired to sleep. Evan at 29, circling empty streets night after night, feeling more present at 2 a.m. than he ever did at noon. "You learn to listen," the voice said, "to notice the gaps." The elevator slowed, stopped. The doors opened. Evan stepped out into a place that should not have existed. It wasn't a room, it wasn't a tunnel, it was a vast, open space beneath the city, lit by a soft, pulsing glow.
Cables thicker than tree trunks snaked across the floor and walls, converging toward a central structure that rose from the ground like a cathedral built by something that didn't understand beauty, only function. Pipes ran overhead, curving and branching like ribs. Lights pulsed slowly along them. A heartbeat. Evan stood at the edge, breath caught in his chest. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Yes," the voice agreed, "it is." The central structure shifted subtly, responding to his presence, not moving exactly, adjusting, like an eye focusing. "This is the city," the voice said, "not the surface you know, the part that stays awake." Evan took a step forward, the floor beneath his foot warmed. He felt it then, awareness, not directed at him, but through him. The city wasn't looking at him the way a person would look at another person. It was sensing him, the way a body sensed pressure or pain. "Why show me this?" Evan asked. The glow brightened slightly. "Because you're already inside," the voice replied, "and because pretending otherwise would break you." Evan laughed softly, shaking his head. "So what am I supposed to do? Fix it? Watch it? Witness it," the voice said. "Maintain it. Listen when it speaks." Evan's chest tightened. "Forever?" The answer came without hesitation. "As long as you stay awake." The words settled heavily. A door appeared on the far side of the chamber, sliding open soundlessly. Beyond it, Evan glimpsed streets, normal streets, cars moving, people walking, morning light creeping into the sky. An exit. "You can leave," the voice said. "Most do." Evan turned toward the door. "And forget?" he asked. "Yes." He hesitated. "And if I stay?" The glow pulsed brighter. "You become part of it." Evan closed his eyes. He thought of sleep, the way it always slipped away from him. The night stretched endlessly while days blurred past. He thought of the hospital hallway, the beeping machines, the long nights when the world felt thinner, closer to something underneath. He had always lived at the edge of things. Evan stepped away from the door. The city responded instantly. The chamber brightened, cables humming with renewed energy. The voice softened, losing its distance, becoming almost human. "Good," it said. "You understand." The elevator doors closed behind him. When Evan opened his eyes again, he was driving. Morning light brushed the tops of buildings. Traffic flowed. Pedestrians crossed streets, heads down, unaware. The dashboard clock read 6:12 a.m. Evan blinked. The city felt different now. Not quieter, not louder, but closer, like a presence at his back instead of a weight above him. He drove through the city all day. He didn't feel tired. That night at exactly 12:47 a.m., Evan picked up his first passenger. They slid into the back seat, yawning. "Rough night?" they asked casually. Evan smiled, just a little. "Only if you're awake for it," he replied. The city watched and waited. Evan learned quickly that the city never explained itself twice. The first night after everything changed, he drove without destination, not because he was lost, but because he no longer needed the map. Streets presented themselves before he reached them, intersections opening like doors already unlocked. He didn't think about turning left or right. He simply did, and the city accepted the choice. At 12:47 a.m., the world thinned. He felt it the way some people felt pressure changes before storms, an internal shift, a quiet click behind the eyes. The noise of traffic softened, not disappearing, but retreating, as though someone had turned the volume down a few degrees. Headlights grew more diffuse. Reflections lingered longer than their sources. The city breathed in. Evan exhaled with it. He passed familiar places that no longer felt the same. A gas station where he'd once waited out a thunderstorm. A closed bookstore with a handwritten sign in the window promising reopening soon. An apartment building where someone always played piano too late at night. Now those places watched him back, not with eyes, with awareness. He understood then that the city hadn't changed. He had. When the first speaker crackled to life, he didn't flinch. "Good evening," his voice said gently, layered beneath the low hiss of static. Evan kept his eyes on the road. "I was wondering when you'd do that again." The voice paused, adjusted. "You sound calmer," it observed. "I'm listening," Evan replied. "That's what you wanted, right?" Streetlights pulsed once, sequentially, like a nod. The city didn't communicate in sentences. Words were inefficient. It spoke in patterns, traffic flows, light cycles, electrical hums. Evan had begun to understand those rhythms, the way a musician understood tempo without counting. "You're still learning," the voice said, "but you're no longer resisting." Evan turned onto a side street that shouldn't have connected to the one he'd been on. It did anyway. "What happens to the others?" he asked. There was a longer pause this time. "Most forget," the city replied. "Some don't." Evan thought of the figures in the plaza, the motionless people, the way they'd felt unfinished. "And the ones who don't?" he asked quietly. "They stop moving," the city said, "in every sense that matters." Evan didn't press further. A car appeared ahead of him, pulled over at the curb. Its hazard lights blinked in a slow, uncertain rhythm. Evan slowed as he passed, glancing inside. A man sat behind the wheel, hands clenched, eyes wide and unfocused. His mouth moved soundlessly, repeating something Evan couldn't hear. The man looked at Evan. Recognition flashed across his face. Relief. Evan felt it like a tug. He kept driving. Later, he parked beneath an overpass where sound gathered and multiplied. The concrete above him vibrated faintly with distant traffic. Evan shut off the engine and leaned back in his seat, staring up through the windshield at the underbelly of the city. "You could help him," the city said. Evan closed his eyes. You didn't help me. Another pause. We did, the city corrected. You survived. That's not the same thing. No, the city agreed. It isn't. Evan slept for the first time in years. Not deeply, not comfortably, but enough. When he woke, the sky was pale with early morning. His body felt heavy, unfamiliar. He stretched, joints popping, muscles protesting. For a brief, disorienting moment, everything felt normal. Then he noticed the clock. 12:47 a.m. Still. Evan frowned and checked his phone. No date, no notifications, no missed time. He was hungry. That surprised him. He drove until he found a diner he didn't recognize. The sign buzzed faintly, letters half lit, spelling a name that refused to settle in his mind. Inside, a single waitress stood behind the counter, polishing a mug that never seemed to get clean. She looked up as Evan entered. "You're new," she said. Evan hesitated. "I don't think so." She smiled faintly. "They never do." He sat at the counter. "Do you have coffee?" She poured without answering. The coffee tasted real, bitter, hot, grounding. "That one won't help," she said, nodding toward his chest, "but it's nice to pretend." Evan studied her face. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "How long have you worked here?" She shrugged. "Long enough." "Do you know what this place is?" he asked. Her eyes flicked toward the windows, where the street beyond seemed slightly out of sync, pedestrians passing a fraction too slowly. "It's where people end up," she said, "when they don't leave, when they don't stay." Evan finished the coffee. "And you?" She hesitated, then smiled again, sadder this time. "I missed my exit." The city hummed softly, approving. Evan left money on the counter. He wasn't sure why. Some habits lingered. Outside, the streets felt tighter again, more attentive. "You don't have to keep pretending," the city said. Evan laughed quietly. "You're one to talk." A memory surfaced without warning. A night years ago, long before rideshare apps and endless streets. Evan walking home alone, streetlights flickering out one by one behind him. The sense of being followed, not by footsteps, but by attention. The quiet certainty that something had noticed him.
He'd walked faster then. He didn't now. "Why me?" Evan asked again, not angrily, just curious. "You stayed awake," the city replied, "when others chose not to." "That's not a reason," Evan said. "It's the only one that matters." The night deepened. The city's heartbeat slowed, then steadied. Evan drove past a familiar intersection and felt the pull again. Not strong, not forceful, just present. A choice. He turned. The street led him to a place he recognized from memory, but not from maps. A stretch of road beneath elevated tracks where sound bent and shadows pooled. A car sat parked in the middle of the lane, engine off, doors closed. Hazard lights blinked. Evan stopped a short distance away. He sat there for a long moment, feeling the city's attention tighten. "Be careful," the city said. Evan opened his door and stepped out. The air felt heavier here, dense with unspoken rules. He approached the other car slowly, hands visible, heart steady. Inside sat a woman, gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed straight ahead. Her lips moved faintly, counting. "Hey," Evan said softly.
She flinched, but didn't turn. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Evan nodded. "I know." Her eyes flicked to him, desperate. "It's not letting me go." Evan felt the truth of that settle in his bones. "You can still leave," he said. She shook her head. "I heard my voice. It sounded like me. It told me to keep driving." Evan swallowed. "I did too," he admitted. She stared at him. "What happened to you?" Evan considered the question. "I listened," he said, "and I stopped running." The city hummed, uncertain. The woman's hands trembled. "I don't want to disappear." "You won't, but you can't stay like this." He stepped back, gesturing toward the road behind him. "Drive. Don't look back. When the street widens, turn left. When the lights flicker, close your eyes." "That doesn't make sense," she said. "It doesn't have to," Evan replied. "Just trust it." She hesitated. Then the engine started. The city inhaled sharply. The woman drove. When she vanished around the corner, the pressure eased. The city was quiet for a long time. "You interfered," it said finally. Evan returned to his car. "I helped." "You altered a path." "So do you," Evan said. The city considered that. "You will make mistakes," it said. Evan smiled faintly. "So will you." The dashboard clock flickered. For a fraction of a second, it read 12:48 a.m. Then it returned to 12:47. Evan noticed. The city noticed that he noticed. Something shifted, not breaking, adjusting. The night stretched on, and Evan drove, not as a passenger anymore, not as prey, but something in between, someone who knew the rules and bent them carefully, quietly, one intersection at a time. The city stayed awake with him. Evan began to notice them after the city stopped pretending he was alone. They weren't obvious at first, just small inconsistencies, faces that appeared too often in different places, cars that passed him more than once despite turning in opposite directions, figures reflected in windows that didn't quite match the people casting them, the people who almost left. They carried a particular stillness with them, like travelers who had already packed but hadn't yet stepped out the door. They moved through the city carefully, glancing over their shoulders, checking clocks more than phones. They were awake, and the city was watching them closely. Evan felt it each time he passed one, a tightening, a subtle resistance in the road, as though the city wanted him to slow down, to look away, to let things unfold without interference. He didn't always listen. The first was a teenager standing at a bus stop long after the last route had ended, backpack slung over one shoulder, hood pulled low, eyes darting between the dark street and the glowing transit map that hadn't updated in years. Evan pulled over. The kid flinched when Evan rolled down the window. "You waiting for something?" Evan asked gently. The kid hesitated. "The bus." Evan glanced at the empty road. "Which one?" "Any," the kid said, "as long as it leaves." The city's hum deepened, vibrating through the pavement. Evan chose his words carefully. "You've been standing here long?" The kid looked at the streetlight above them. It flickered once. "Since the clock stopped." Evan nodded. That answer made sense in a way that scared him. "You hear voices?" Evan asked. The kid swallowed. "Yeah." "Your own?" Another nod. Evan leaned back, eyes on the road ahead. "Don't follow it." The kid laughed weakly. "That's what it says too." Evan met their eyes. "That's how you know it's lying." The city shifted, streetlights dimming slightly. Evan opened the passenger door. "Get in. I'll take you somewhere safer." The kid hesitated only a second before climbing in, slamming the door like they were afraid it might vanish. As Evan pulled away, the city resisted. The road narrowed, the GPS flickering uselessly. Evan ignored it, trusting his sense of direction, the one that had grown sharper since the night everything changed. "Where are we going?" the kid asked. "A place where time moves, even if it's slow." They drove in silence. The city pressed in, then gradually loosened its grip. The air lightened. Distant traffic noise returned, faint but real. At a brightly lit intersection, Evan stopped. The dashboard clock flickered. 1:03 a.m. The kid gasped. "It moved!" Evan smiled faintly. "That's your stop." The kid got out, eyes wide, breathing fast. "What about you?" Evan shook his head. "I'm not leaving." The kid hesitated, then ran across the street, disappearing into a cluster of moving headlights and sound. The city exhaled. "That one mattered to you," it said. Evan drove on. They all do. The city didn't respond. Not every encounter went that way. Some people didn't want help. Some clung to the voice they heard, convinced it was guiding them somewhere better. Evan learned quickly that forcing anything only made the city push back harder. There was a man pacing in circles beneath a parking structure, muttering instructions to himself that changed every few seconds. When Evan tried to speak to him, the man screamed and bolted, vanishing into a shadow that swallowed sound. There was a woman sitting in her car at a red light that never changed, hands resting peacefully in her lap, eyes closed like she was asleep. Evan waited beside her for nearly an hour before realizing she wasn't breathing. Those were the ones who had stayed too long. The city absorbed them quietly. Each time it happened, Evan felt something tighten inside him. Not guilt exactly, but a growing awareness of limits. The city could be bent, nudged, persuaded, but not overturned, not yet. "You're changing things," the city said one night as Evan idled beneath a bridge where water dripped steadily from above. "That has consequences." Evan watched the ripples form in shallow puddles on the pavement. "So does doing nothing." "You are not in charge," the city replied. "I know," said Evan, "but I'm not invisible anymore neither." The city fell silent. That silence lasted longer than usual. Evan sensed it like pressure building before a storm. The hum beneath the streets deepened, vibrations crawling up through the soles of his shoes, into his bones. Something was coming. He first noticed it in the clocks. Digital displays lagged, then skipped forward in uneven bursts. Analog hands stuttered, twitching between seconds like they couldn't decide where they belonged. Phones died faster after midnight, batteries draining as if time itself was pulling power from them. People grew restless. Insomnia spread. Evan passed more faces with hollow eyes, more figures lingering on corners long after they should have gone home. The city was thinning again, the veil between surface and depth wearing dangerously thin. "You're attracting attention," the city said. "From who?" Evan asked. The hum shifted, uneasy. "From what listens when even I sleep." Evan frowned. "You sleep?" The city didn't answer. That night, Evan found the diner again. It looked more solid now, lights brighter, sign fully lit. Inside, the waitress stood behind the counter, polishing the same mug. "You're busier," she observed as Evan sat. "You look tired," Evan replied. She snorted softly. "That's not how this works." He glanced around. The diner felt fuller somehow, not with people, but with presence, like a waiting room that existed between destinations. "Something's wrong," Evan said. She nodded. "Something always is. You're just better at hearing it now." Evan leaned forward. "The city said something listens when it sleeps." Her hand paused mid-polish. "That's not supposed to talk to you yet," she said quietly. Evan felt a chill. "Yet?" She met his eyes. "You're changing the balance." "I'm helping people." "You're waking them up," she corrected. "There's a difference." Evan sat back. "So what happens?" She hesitated, then sighed. "When enough people notice the wrong things, the city doesn't get to decide anymore." Outside, the streetlight flickered. Once, twice, then went dark. The diner lights dimmed, shadows stretching unnaturally long. The hum beneath the city deepened into something else, a rhythm that didn't belong to it. Evan stood. "I need to drive." She nodded. "Be careful." He paused at the door. "Are you coming?" She smiled sadly. "I can't." Evan stepped into the night. The city felt different, tense, alert, like a held breath stretched too far. As he drove, streets rearranged themselves more aggressively, intersections splitting and rejoining, reflections refusing to behave, and beneath it all, something listened, something patient, something that had noticed Evan noticing it. The dashboard clock flickered again, 12:47 a.m., then slowly, 12:46 a.m. Evan stared. Time was moving backward. The city shuddered. "You shouldn't have done that," it said. Evan tightened his grip on the wheel. "Neither should you." The hum rose, no longer steady, no longer singular. There were more than one heartbeat now, and one of them was not the city's. Evan felt the shift before he understood it. The road beneath his tires vibrated, not violently, not enough to throw the car off balance, but with a subtle irregularity, like a heartbeat skipping a beat. The hum that had always lived beneath the city fractured into overlapping rhythms, some too fast, others dragging behind. The city was no longer alone. Streetlights flickered out of sequence, traffic signals glitched between colors, red bleeding briefly into green, green stalling too long before yielding. Evan drove carefully, hands steady, eyes scanning for patterns that no longer wanted to resolve. "You woke it," the city said. Its voice sounded strained now, thinner, less certain. "I didn't know it was asleep," Evan replied. "Neither did I," the city admitted. That unsettled him more than anything else so far. The buildings ahead leaned inward sharply, then corrected themselves, like a reflection snapping back into place. Windows rippled, glass warping as though the structures themselves were breathing unevenly. Evan slowed at an intersection that hadn't existed a moment earlier. The street sign read, "Return." He frowned. Return to what? The sign shuddered, letters blurring, then snapped into something else. Remember. A pulse rolled through the pavement, knocking dust loose from nearby walls. Evan felt it in his chest, a pressure behind the sternum, as if something inside him had been tuned to the same frequency. Images surfaced unbidden. A childhood bedroom, curtains pulled tight against streetlight glare. Evan lying awake, counting cars passing outside, mapping their routes in his head. A late-night drive years later, long before rideshare apps, when he'd taken the long way home just to stay moving. The moment he'd realized the city felt more real at night than it ever did during the day. "You noticed me first," the city said quietly. before you understood what I was." Evan nodded. "I always felt watched." "Yes," the city said, "but not by me." The hum deepened into something like a murmur. Evan drove past a row of parked cars whose windows reflected not the street, but other streets, places he recognized and places he didn't, scenes layered atop each other like poorly aligned film reels. He forced himself not to look too long. The rules still applied. A figure stood in the middle of the road ahead. Evan braked gently, the car rolling to a stop several feet away. The figure didn't react. They stood perfectly still, head bowed, hands hanging loosely at their sides. "Is that one of yours?" Evan asked. The city hesitated. "It used to be." Evan stepped out of the car. The air felt heavier here, charged with static. His skin prickled as he approached the figure, careful, alert. When he was close enough, he could see the person's face. It was blank. Not smooth, not erased, just unfinished, like a mannequin that hadn't yet been painted. The figure lifted its head slowly. Its eyes reflected something Evan couldn't see directly, something vast and shifting. "It's learning," the city said. The figure opened its mouth. This time the sound came out. Not words, a layered noise, like multiple voices speaking through the same throat, overlapping and slipping out of sync. Evan staggered back, heart hammering. "Stop," he said. The sound cut off instantly. The figure tilted its head, studying him with unsettling focus. "You don't belong to it," Evan said, more confidently than he felt. "You're stuck between." The city hummed uncertainly. The figure took a step forward. Evan raised his hand. "No." The word carried weight. The pavement cracked slightly beneath his feet, a thin fracture spreading outward like a spiderweb. The figure froze. Behind it, the street folded in on itself, buildings stretching and compressing like soft clay. The hum fractured again, something sharp and curious threading through it. "That's new," the city said. Evan lowered his hand slowly. His heart raced, but beneath the fear was something else, a growing sense of alignment, like he'd finally found the right leverage point. "It's using you," Evan said. "Whatever that thing is, it's pushing through the places where you're weakest." "Yes," the city replied, "and you are making me weaker." Evan met the city's attention fully for the first time. "Then let me help you." Silence. Then, reluctantly, "How?" Evan looked at the figure, at the distorted street, at the clocks that no longer agreed on what time it was. "By choosing," he said, "instead of waiting." The city's response rippled outward, subtle but undeniable. The lights steadied slightly. The hum found a tentative rhythm again. The figure in the road blinked. Once, twice, then collapsed, crumpling like a marionette with its strings cut. Evan rushed forward, kneeling beside it. The body felt warm, real, human, a person breathing. The city exhaled, relief evident even without words. "You can't keep doing this alone," it said. "I know, that's why I won't." The city waited. "I'm not the only one awake," Evan continued. "I'm just the first you talk to." The city's attention spread outward, tentative, cautious, touching the edges of countless half-sleepless minds scattered across the city. Insomniacs, night workers, drivers, watchers, those who lingered. "You want caretakers," the city said. "You need witnesses. Let them choose." The hum deepened, uncertain but intrigued. "It risks exposure," the city said. "So does hiding," Evan replied. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the clocks stabilized. Not perfectly, but enough. The dashboard clock ticked forward. 12:48 a.m. Evan smiled faintly. The city pulsed, something like gratitude threading through its voice. You will not be able to protect everyone. I know, Evan said, but I can protect some. The city accepted that. The streets eased, intersections settling back into familiar shapes. The oppressive closeness retreated, replaced by a wary calm. But beneath it all, Evan could still feel it. The other presence, listening, learning, waiting for the next opportunity. You should rest, the city said. Evan got back into his car. I will, soon. As he drove, the first hints of dawn brushed the edges of the sky. Traffic began to return, tentative at first, then surging as morning claimed its territory. People passed Evan without noticing him. That was fine. He noticed them. At exactly 12:47 a.m. the following night, Evan parked beneath the same bridge where the city's hum was strongest. He wasn't alone this time. 3 other cars idled nearby. Their drivers sat alert, uncertain but listening. Evan stepped out, nodding to them. The city watched, and for the first time since it had learned to breathe, it didn't wait alone.
There were 5 of them the second night. Evan counted by habit. Drivers sitting in idling cars beneath the overpass, headlights dimmed, engines humming softly like nervous breaths. No one spoke at first. They didn't need to. Each of them had arrived the same way Evan had, by noticing something they couldn't unnotice. The city felt cautious. Its hum was present but restrained, as if it were afraid to lean too close, afraid that whatever listened beyond it might hear. Evan stood between the cars, hands in his pockets, grounding himself in the familiar weight of his keys. He didn't feel like a leader. He felt like a landmark, something others oriented themselves around without thinking about why. A woman stepped out of the nearest car, late 30s, dark circles beneath her eyes, posture tight with exhaustion and adrenaline. "You're the one," she said quietly. Evan tilted his head. "The one what?" "The one who didn't disappear," she replied. Another door opened, then another. A man with grease-stained hands, a rideshare driver like Evan, judging by the decal on his windshield. A security guard still in uniform, radio clipped to his belt. A college student clutching a backpack like a lifeline. 5 awake people, 5 steady heartbeats. "I didn't save myself," Evan said. "I listened. There's a difference." The city hummed, low and approving. "You hear it too," the woman said. Evan nodded. "Everyone here does. That's why you're here." The student swallowed. "It keeps changing the streets, like it's testing me." "That's not the city," Evan said gently. The air tightened at that. "Then what is it?" the security guard asked. Evan exhaled slowly. Something that noticed the gaps, something that learned where the city thins after midnight. The hum beneath them stuttered, then steadied. "It's not from here," Evan continued, "but it wants to be." A distant sound rolled through the streets, a deep, resonant vibration that made concrete tremble and windows rattle faintly. The city recoiled, drawing in on itself. "It's closer tonight," the mechanic said, voice tight. Evan felt it too, a pressure behind the eyes, a sense of being evaluated. You don't fight it, and you don't follow it. You acknowledge it and keep moving. "Moving where?" the rideshare driver asked. Evan smiled faintly. "Together." The streets shifted, not violently, not suddenly, but decisively. The road beneath the overpass elongated, stretching into a corridor of light and shadow that hadn't existed moments before. Streetlights aligned themselves into a clean, steady rhythm. The city was opening a path. "This is as far as it will bend," Evan said. The city hummed confirmation.
The presence stirred. The air thickened, sound warping slightly, as though the night itself were being pulled out of shape. Reflections in car windows began to lag again, showing movements that hadn't happened yet. The student gasped.
It's here, Evan nodded. It always is. The trick is not letting it decide. A shape began to form at the far end of the street. Not solid, not fully present. A suggestion of structure, angles where angles shouldn't exist, depth without distance. It didn't move forward so much as resolve, like an image coming into focus. The city trembled. It learned from you, the woman said to Evan. Yes, Evan replied. That's why this matters. The presence spoke, not with sound, with pressure. You are inefficient, it impressed upon them. You fracture attention. You delay inevitability. The student whimpered. Evan stepped forward, feeling the weight of every eye, human and otherwise, settle on him. We're not here to stop you, Evan said calmly. We're here to refuse you. The presence pulsed, confusion rippling through its form. Refusal is temporary. So is hunger, Evan replied. The city surged. Lights flared. Power lines thrummed. The rhythm beneath the pavement synchronized, streets aligning into a stable pattern that resisted distortion. 5 people standing awake, witnessing, anchoring. The presence recoiled slightly, its edges blurring. This configuration is unsustainable, it pressed. Evan nodded. That's why it's not permanent. He turned to the others. You don't stay, not all of you. You come when the city calls, when it thins, when you feel that pull. And you? The mechanic asked. Evan smiled, tired but steady. I'll be here. The presence withdrew a fraction, studying the city with renewed interest. You adapt, it observed. So do you, Evan said. That's why you'll never win. The city's hum deepened, no longer fearful. Something like confidence settled into the streets. Slowly, the presence unraveled. Not gone, but dispersed, retreating into the folds between structures where it could no longer exert focus. The pressure eased. The city breathed out. One by one, the drivers returned to their cars. No one spoke much. They didn't need to. Something fundamental had been shared without words. As engines started and headlights brightened, the city relaxed further, intersections loosening back into familiar arrangements. The woman lingered. What if it comes back stronger? Evan met her gaze. Then we'll be stronger too. She nodded and drove away. Evan remained beneath the overpass as dawn crept in, painting the sky in muted colors. The city felt lighter. Not safe, never safe, but balanced. You changed the equation, the city said quietly. Evan leaned against his car, exhaustion finally catching up to him. You did too. You stopped hiding. Yes, the city admitted. I don't know what comes next. Evan smiled faintly. Neither do I. Morning traffic flowed. People passed. Life resumed. But beneath it all, a network of awareness now existed, thin but real, connecting those who stayed awake just long enough to notice when the night bent the wrong way. The city wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Evan. The city did not celebrate its survival. It never did. Morning arrived the way it always had, gradually, reluctantly. Light crept into alleyways, softened the edges of buildings, filled the cracks left behind by the night. Traffic returned in uneven waves, horns sounded. People complained about coffee and weather and schedules. No one noticed how close everything had come. Evan stood on the sidewalk as the sky brightened, hands buried deep in his jacket pockets. He felt older than he had the night before,
Not weaker, just fuller, like something had finally settled into place inside him. "You should go home," the city said quietly. Evan smiled. "I am home." The city considered that. "Yes," it said, "you are." For a while, things were calm. Not safe, not fixed, but calm. The clocks behaved. Streets stayed where they were supposed to be. The other presence lingered at the edges, distant and curious, no longer pressing, but never entirely gone. Evan slept when he could. He drove when he needed to. And when the night thinned, when the air grew heavy and reflections lingered too long, he listened. Others did too. They didn't form a group. There were no meetings, no names, no messages exchanged. They simply learned to recognize the pull, the moment when the city's rhythm faltered and asked, quietly, for attention. Sometimes it was just Evan, sometimes it wasn't. He saw them occasionally, another driver idling beneath a bridge, a security guard lingering too long on patrol, a student walking instead of sleeping. A nod passed between them, nothing more. That was enough. The diner disappeared one night. Evan noticed because he always did. One evening it was there, lights warm, coffee bitter and real. The next, the corner was empty, occupied by a laundromat that had apparently been there for years. He smiled softly. Some exits only opened once. The city changed too. Not visibly, not in ways that made headlines, but subtly. Streetlights synced more cleanly. Infrastructure failures resolved themselves faster. Traffic flowed a little better after midnight, as if the city were less distracted, more present. It had learned. So had Evan. On the anniversary of the night everything changed, though he no longer trusted dates. Evan found himself driving again at 12:47 a.m. The clock glowed steadily, no flicker, no distortion. The city hummed in a familiar, steady rhythm. A ride request chimed. Evan hesitated, then accepted. The pickup point was only 3 blocks away, at an intersection that once led somewhere else, somewhere deeper. A man waited at the curb, mid-20s, tired eyes, phone clutched too tightly in his hand. Evan pulled up and unlocked the doors.
The man slid into the back seat, exhaling in relief. "Thanks," he said. "I thought no one was driving tonight." Evan met his eyes in the rear-view mirror. "Rough night?" Evan asked. The man hesitated. "Yeah, I keep hearing my own voice telling me to stay awake." Evan nodded slowly. The city listened. "You did the right thing," Evan said gently, "getting in the car." The man frowned. "Did I?" Evan pulled away from the curb, merging smoothly into the empty street. "Yeah," he said, "you did." They drove in silence for a moment. The city lights stretched ahead, familiar and calm. The man glanced at the dashboard clock. 12:47 a.m. His breath caught. It hasn't moved. Evan kept his eyes on the road. Sometimes it doesn't. Is that bad? Evan thought of the underground chamber, the presence between places, the nights that bent too far. "No," he said, "it just means you noticed." The man swallowed. "What happens now?" Evan smiled, not wide, not reassuring, honest. "Now," he said, "you keep driving. You don't follow the voice. You don't stop in the wrong places. And when the street widens, you let it." The man nodded slowly, like the words had landed somewhere deeper than thought. They drove on.
At the next major intersection, the road opened up. Traffic noise returned faintly. Time loosened its grip. The clock ticked. 12:48 a.m. The man laughed shakily. It moved. Evan pulled over. "This is as far as I go with you," Evan said. The man opened the door, then paused. "What about you?" Evan looked out at the city, the streets, the lights, the quiet hum beneath it all. "I'll be around," he said. The man stepped out and disappeared into the flow of the waking city. Evan sat for a moment longer, engine idling. "You could leave," the city said. Evan smiled. "I know." "But you won't," the city added. "No," Evan agreed. "Not tonight." The city accepted that. Evan pulled back into the street and drove on, one more quiet presence moving through a city that never truly slept, only listened. And somewhere, deep beneath asphalt and concrete, something else listened too. Patient, curious, waiting for the next time someone stayed awake just a little too long. Never drive after 12:47 a.m. The city might notice you.